Who you are may seem foreign to some of you because you say, oh, I know who I am. I'm so-and-so's wife. I'm so-and-so's daughter. I'm so-and-so's brother. I'm so-and-so's sister. I'm this teacher. I'm this lawyer. I'm this, administrative assistant. I am this, whatever you have been identifying yourself as is not the truth of who you are. It's simply a way that your ego has been keeping your mind busy while your soul is unfolding. And so in the process of this, what has happened is that you have been mesmerized into thinking that the things that are going on externally in your life are real. Now, the only thing about the things that are happening in your life that are real are your feelings, not your emotions, your feelings. Because your feelings is that aspect of you that is totally expressing the divine energy from which you were created. And in the process of your soul's unfoldment, you have created these different scenarios, these different situations, these different conditions so that you can learn the lesson that is for you to learn, that you agreed to learn when you decided to take on this incarnation into this earth realm. Now, for those of you that might find that that's a little bit deep, I'm going to break it down a little bit more. I was thinking about the song that India Ari sings. It's called I Am the Light. And when I think about that song, some of the lyrics say things to me that bring me back into the awareness of who I am. Because we get it twisted sometimes when we get engaged in the drama, as was referenced in the reading from the Science of Mind magazine this morning from Miguel Ruiz. And it was really about our capacity to move beyond the drama and into the recognition of ourselves as love. Because as a love, we are simply the I am that is seeking to reveal itself in, through, and as our lives. And in this understanding, we come to cherish ourselves greatly. And in the process of cherishing ourselves greatly, we find ourselves in the position of loving others easily and effortlessly. To heck, you say, this is not easy. Some of these people at my job are getting on my last nerve, Reverend Celeste. Are you sure you know what you're talking about? Well, what I do know is when the opportunity arises that something greater is seeking to be revealed. We talked about that in the vision statement when we said we're recognizing God as the essence of our being. The stuff that we talk about, the stuff that we say we want, the stuff that we engage in are simply not the real things that we're yearning for. We're yearning for our true self. I have shared with you last week about going to Northwestern and doing those tests. They took a lot of blood. And when I think about the lyric that's in the song that India Ari sings, I am not what my family did, I know this doesn't pertain to you because your family is always cooperative with you and they're always going along with whatever your opinion is and they're totally in alignment with all of your beliefs, so this is probably just me. So when the woman was about to start taking this blood, she knew she was going to be taking several vials of it. And she said, oh, I'm going to have to bring some lavender in here and bring in, some nice calm music when I get ready to take people's blood. And I said, oh, where were you about 9 years ago when I took lavender into my father's hospital room and my relatives and his nurse told me that I was hurting him, that was not going to help him. And this technician, who was a medical professional, said to me, lavender is so calming, it is healing. And I said, yes, I know. And so there are times when the people in our lives are presenting challenges for us. In this particular case, because I was still very present with the story last week, that meant that I still had some forgiveness work to do because I was just holding on to it. So if you know that you're not, the way to know that you're not over a situation is to really see how your energy is when you start to tell that story that you've been telling over and over and over again. And then you know that your healing is not over yet. I just had to put on my glasses so I can see y'all's responses, and I see you hear what I'm talking about. When India Ari sings, I am not the brokenness inside, we're really talking about all of the disappointments that we've had in our relationships, all the disappointments we may have had in our careers, the things that we thought that we should have done, as was referenced in the Don Miguel Ruiz interview, and the things that we almost got done, but we seem to have somehow seemingly failed. All of those things that have been sitting in our hearts, and we have been entertaining this egoic dialogue that says, I am not enough because I couldn't do this. I am not enough because I wasn't able to keep that job. I am not enough because I didn't show up in that relationship. In all of those ways that you've been telling yourself lies, I'm here to tell you, just stop. I'm here to say you are the light. And within you is this powerful, loving energy that seeks to be revealed. And when you know that you are the light, that is simply not a symbol. It is this energy that we all are. And I've spoken of it before in Kabbalistic terms when we talked about the shards of light being that particular story that was told about creation, where we are each here shining an essence of God, that each one of us is a divine spark, that each one of us is here to be in service to love. So love is the thing that we were created from, and the love is the thing that we are here to express. But we have to start with ourselves. And so as the reading was inferring, it is up to us to start by unconditionally loving ourselves. We get to forgive ourselves for the ways that we didn't show up, perhaps, to a family member in the way that we might have. We didn't show up, perhaps, in a job situation in a way that we could have, or we didn't show up in a thinking capacity that we thought we should have had around our finances or around some situation where we had a choice to make, and the choice that we chose did not lead us down the road that we expected to be on. But life is more than that moment of disappointment. Life is more than that moment of sadness. There is something within us that is seeking to be more through us. And if we use that particular situation or that particular circumstance as an opportunity to beat up on ourselves, then we are doing a disservice not only to ourselves but to our very Creator, who has knowing that everything is in divine order and that there is no way for you to be anything other than perfect. Well, nobody's perfect, you might say, because I hear it happening in somebody's mind who I'm very close to, who likes to say that phrase a lot. But that is a perspective that is a choice. It's not necessarily fact to say that nobody is perfect. It is truth to say that everybody is perfect, because God is all-knowing. Remember this. Omniscient means knows everything about everything. When it created you, it knew full well what it was doing. It did not make a mistake when it created you. It said, I'm going to do something fantastically loving to myself today. I'm going to create Nikki. I'm going to do something incredibly compassionate with myself today. I'm going to create Margarita. I'm going to do something incredibly passionate today. I'm going to create Toya. I'm going to do something incredibly loving today. I'm going to create Sarita. all the many ways that God is loving itself comes by means of us, and we are the product of love. The actual self-loving process is a creative process. And you will find, as Don was inferring and sharing and indicating with you from the meditative practices that we've been doing, that you come to an awareness about yourself that is crystal clear, and it cannot be perceived while we're caught up watching the television, watching the news, being on the internet, being engaged in this outer process, needing to connect with, seemingly with people, but what we're truly seeking to connect with is our authentic self. What we're truly seeking to connect with is our true self. What we're truly seeking to connect with is our unique beauty. What we're truly seeking to connect with is the love that is inside of us. And so if we think that it is outside of us, if we have been convincing ourselves that our good is somewhere other than where we are, that we are on a wild goose chase. And it's time to come on back home. It's time to come back into the awareness of the light that you are. Now remember, light is personified when you see all of these different religious icons. You may see a halo around someone's head, or you may see a picture of Jesus the Christ just shining, illuminating. That is because he is an enlightened being, and that is indicative of the connection that this particular being has with their own divinity. No, it is not blasphemous to say that we are all divine beings. It is the truth of who we are. We are spiritual beings. We are not human beings. Human is what we do in the process of exploring and engaging and unfolding our spiritual awareness. And so in the process of this light energy being emanated, sometimes we seek to sense that something is missing. And it is that greater capacity that is seeking to emerge. But it may seem at times that our light is dim. It may appear that we're not at full blast. It may appear that we're not expressing our full illumination. All of our wattage is not being broadcast. And those are the times when we are seeking the questions. And so in that moment, we may arrive at the answer, and the answer may not be totally known to us because we have disconnected from our source. Think of yourself as being something that is plugged into a wall. Think of yourself as coming disconnected from that connection and wondering why you have no power. You see, when you realize that you are the light, you're knowing that it doesn't depend on anything other than the presence of God within you in order for you to shine. I have shared from time to time with you a breakthrough that I had when I was in the Global Heart Vision class during my ministerial training. I've shared different breakthroughs at different times. This one came after I was in ministerial school. I had already gone through practitioner training. I had already had my breakthrough that was around sexuality with that one. And what else came up with that was the racism and the sexism and all of this. And I said, oh my God, thank God. You know, all of that pain that I released is over. And then it bumped up against me when I was in a Global Heart Vision class. If y'all haven't been paying attention to your program, look at the Global Heart Vision, see what it's about. It's all about our mission to create a world that works for everyone. But in the process of doing that, you have to create a world that works for you. And that just simply means that you are a universe, and in the process of your being at one with the loving presence that you are, then you have an opportunity to feel dis-ease at different moments or feel conflict at different moments. And so don't think that you are so separate from what's happening in Egypt right now, because any conflict that you are dealing with right now is simply in our picturing that is happening in Egypt. Now, I'm not holding you responsible for the political turmoil that's going over there. That is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that there is nothing that is happening within you that is not happening in the outer world, because we are a universe. We are one song. And each one of us is a note playing in this melody. But anyway, I digress. When I was speaking about this particular moment that was happening in my Global Heart Vision class, it was something that came up around racism, and it was a Halloween weekend that weekend, and I started to recall when I was about 9 or 10 years old and found myself at my cousin's house, and my mother had left me in their care, and when we went trick-or-treating, we went across the bridge. At that time, it was like 98th in Michigan or something like that, and ding dong, trick-or-treat, and the voice came out that said, N-word, go back to your own neighborhood. And I was like, oh. I was like so totally devastated. I was like, oh my God, he's so mean. How could he not want to give me candy? Why doesn't he like me? And my older cousins were like cussing and blah, 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 and back and honky and blah, 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 and all of this stuff. And so that stayed indelibly in my mind, and I remember that there was this moment where I didn't feel loved, where I felt disconnected in some way, where I felt separate in some way that was unfamiliar to me, that I hadn't realized before. And when I came to share that in the class at that time, I was willing to release it in a way. The other time that you tell stories is for a lesson. I was sharing it in a way for us to know that I had chosen from that point forward to run. When it seemed as though I was in danger, to run. When it seemed somehow that I wasn't being accepted, to run. When it seemed somehow that I was being disrespected, and I either was fighting or fleeing. I was fight or flight mode, and that this had become my way of being, and that I needed to continue to express this way because the world wasn't a safe place in which to live. And because I had created this in my own world, because I had created this in my own reality, I was participating in the conflicts that were happening in my life because of this belief system that I had, because these laws are perfect. They will absolutely say yes to whatever it is that you believe. And as God would have it, the following Monday was the day that they buried, that they held the body of Rosa Parks in the Capitol Rotunda. And that was the Monday following that particular Halloween, and I felt a sense of completion because this woman who had been so dishonored was now being honored in a way that had nothing to do with the color of her skin, that had nothing to do with her outer appearance, but everything to do with her character. And so what I want you to know is the brokenness that is inside, and the perception that your skin color has anything to do with your right to be enjoyed or your right to accept the love is simply not true. You are beloved, and this presence that created you loves you dearly. And when you come into these spiritual practices that are also outlined in your program, like meditation, when you come into these spiritual practices like prayer, when you come into these spiritual practices like visioning, when you come into these spiritual practices like taking classes, when you come into these spiritual practices, you come to feel that connection. It is complete. It is like locked in. You even feel the click, and it doesn't make a noise. It simply resonates in you in such a vibratory frequency that you come into an awareness, you come into an awakening, you come into an enlightenment of the truth of who you are. Now, you sometimes get caught up, but you have to remember, if you are keeping 1 foot in grace, 1 foot in the light, even when situations come up, like George Zimmerman, even when situations come up that are challenging for us to reconcile with who we know the truth of who we are to be as love, then we have an opportunity to share what it is that we've learned. We have an opportunity to share, oh, I remember when I would have thought this when this occurred. But now you have a heightened awareness. You have an understanding that is greater than the understanding that you had before you were able to recognize that this may be a teaching moment. This may be an opportunity for you to lift someone else up. And I'm not promoting that you do the preaching, but in my world, I also interact with other ministers, and I had an opportunity to actually see how my dialogue with them had transformed them in ways that they were able to recognize their own hidden racism. And they were able to fess up publicly to a listserv that goes all around the world. Now, what I want you to know is this is not about me taking credit for what happened, but this is about me standing in my truth, standing in my light, standing in what I know to be true, and absolutely acknowledging the conditions. We do not deny the conditions, but we stand in the truth. We stand in the anchoring of our prayer work. We stand in the anchoring of all of the emotional work that we've done to clear it out, just like I was clearing out weeds like furiously yesterday. You got to clear out the weeds of your being that are not serving you, or else they will choke the life that is real. And so what I'm saying to you is, your soul inside is all light, and that you are divinity. Now, here's what Holmes has to say. No person whose entire time is spent in the contemplation of limitation can demonstrate freedom from such limitation. That means if you forever focus on being broke, what's going to be your experience? If you forever focus on somebody don't like you, what's going to be your experience? If you forever focus on your body not feeling right, what's going to be your experience? Okay, now, this is simply a law. I mean, you may be concerned with, when you can park and how long you can park and those kind of man-made laws, or who can vote when and who can marry when, and all of that is important in terms of us being able to facilitate and co-create our joy. But the real laws that are happening are these spiritual laws that are totally obedient to your belief. It isn't done unto you as you believe, as Jesus the Christ has already told you. And if you don't believe him, just watch your life and see if you don't outpicture the very thing that you were afraid of happening. Because it will happen every time. It doesn't mean that you don't want something different to happen. It's just that you believe more in the pain than you do in the joy. And you wouldn't even think that that was true at face value. You wouldn't even think that that was true on a conscious level. But when you start seeing what's happening in your life, then you start to see, oh, that's the real belief that is operating here. And the beautiful thing about it is that you were created from this omniscience, so you have a choice to make many other choices about what to believe. And so here's where we go into seeing how songs and writings and different artists are giving us indications of how we can bear the questions that have been hidden. And so here we are. James Baldwin said the purpose of art is to lay bare the questions that have been hidden by the answers. And Michael Beckwith would tell you the answer is you. Phyllis Hyman would too. But for right now, if I take a look at what Dr. Beckwith is saying, he's saying, despite seeming obstacles and detours available to you at the One Mind Bookstore, just a shameless plug, despite seeming obstacles and detours, an inner impulse urges you on as though you are following a reliable map to that place which holds the answers to these courageous and profound questions. An inner impulse urges you on. Because remember, the universe is conspiring for your good. Don't think that because something happens that's funky, that doesn't mean that God has left you out at the curb. By no means. You're like the gentleman that's pushing that rock up the mountain, and the point is not to get the rock up the mountain, but to build your spiritual muscles so that you can come back into remembering who you are. And so you have these particular challenges to strengthen you so that you may know that this too shall pass, and that even though the things that you clung to so dearly may seemingly have slipped away from your fingers and out of your grasp, that there is something greater to be embraced, and that is the essence of who you are. This is what we talk about in our vision statement. To know that God is our essence. And so here we go. Another quote from Dr. Beckwith. You are going to create the condition within yourself so that you can stop thinking that your good is outside of you. Look to your neighbor and say, I am now going to stop thinking that my good is outside of me.
Outside of me.
All right. So you're going to expand and have peace in the time of turmoil. You're going to allow yourself to glow and grow. Say to your neighbor, I'm going to allow myself to glow and grow. I'm going to allow myself to glow and grow. And become more and never less your true self. You didn't have to repeat that, but that's good. Because what happens is when you start to say these things to another, someone asked that question one time, why do we have to repeat that? What is that repeat and all of that back? Well, there's a couple of things happening. One thing that's happening is that it's getting in your body. It's not simply floating through your mind. There are millions of thoughts that's been floating across your mind that have been floating around since the beginning of time. You get to choose to affirm this truth for yourself. And then when it gets in your body, when you state it, then it becomes more real to you. It becomes more part of your belief system. And as it becomes more part of your belief system, you are now accountable to the person that you said it to, because now that energy has been sent out there. And not that anybody here is going to call you on it, but somebody might say, I thought you said that you're good. You stop thinking that you're good is outside of yourself, leader. And now wait a minute. If someone heard you say it, then that means your integrity is now in question. Your integrity is now something that is on the line. And if you think anything about the importance of your integrity, know that your word is your bond. So there's a reason why we say these things out loud. And so the next point I want to make this share from Dr. Beckwith as well is that he talks about being indigenous beings. He talks about that in that book, The Answer Is You. And he talks about being endogenous beings as opposed to indigenous beings. As you know, there are certain plants that are indigenous to certain areas. It doesn't say that Lily can't live in Alaska because, she comes from a different area of the world and therefore she can't possibly survive in Alaska or Greenland. Well, the truth is that we are all made of the same molecules. We all have the same skin, the same basically stuff that is in everybody, including the people that live in Alaska or Greenland. So it is simply a perception that you can only live and you can only survive and you can only thrive in a certain area. But we are indigenous beings, and by that means that what we are connected to is that which is within us. And that everything is created or growing from within us. And so everything that is being produced is happening inside, and it is not dependent on what is happening outside. So I want to bring your awareness back to that light that is within you as I share with you this quote from the Science of Mind textbook. We do well to listen to this inner voice, for it tells us of a life wonderful in its scope, of a love beyond our fondest dreams, of a freedom which the soul craves. So if you're not listening to your inner voice, you fall prey to the fearful dialogue that has been swirling around your head, making you think that those are your thoughts, and they're not. You can only know what your true thoughts are by listening to the inner voice inside of you. Someone can sell you a bridge or swampland or anything. You may think that you're too savvy to get caught up in it, but you do. I'm sorry to say, I've done it, so I know you do. I'm not saying that you're not smarter than me. I'm just saying that the realm of the human is such that we have these challenges and we get mesmerized by things that are simply not substance. And so when you think about people like the Buddha, when you think about people like Jesus, when you think about enlightened beings who are emanating this light, they're aligned with that inner light. And so they're staying connected as they share their illumined presence with everyone that they meet. That's how they were able to get people following them, because the light in them was resonating with the light in the other beings. And so, we all hear good from other people at times, and we get to quote each other. We're so impressed by certain thoughts because we know that they're true. Now, when Deepak Chopra quoted Carl Jung, he said this: the sole purpose of human existence is to kindle a light in the darkness of mere being. And so we are the light, and the world is waiting for us to shine. The world is waiting for us to shine our love in their direction. The world is waiting for us to shine our light in our own direction. Because when we know that when we start with shining the love in our own direction, we can't help loving anybody else. We can't help loving the family member that might have said something crazy. We can't help loving the biased or racist that may have done something. We can't help loving the people who are out here killing each other on the streets and senselessly just throwing gunfire in any and every direction. We can't help but love them because they are us and we are them. And so when we understand that the light within us is seeking to be emerged, then we let it. We let it by releasing the weeds that are choking the light out of us, thinking that it was never possible for that to happen, knowing that this is the truth of who we are, that the sparks that we are ever ignited. Let's turn within and connect with that light source just one more time. Let's move into an awareness of remembering who we are. I am love. I am light. I am that I am. The voice that spoke from the burning bush is the presence of God that is around us, that is in us, that is our very being. When I remember who I am power-filled. I am ignited. I am illumined. I am one with all that is. I take a moment and let myself feel the love, receive the love, embrace the love. My loving truth shines for all to see. As we come back into the room, as we feel the love that is within us, we know that we are never distanced from it. We are never separated from this love. We are never separated from this light. This is our essence. This is our substance. This is our truth. I invite you to love yourself. Let that love spill over. You can't help it. Everybody will feel it. Everybody will know it. Let that love shine, shine, shine. Let that light warm you. Let that light warm everyone around you. Let that light awaken you to truth. Let that light shine. The world is depending on it. Your very soul expects it of you. Your Creator patiently awaits you to arrive back home into this truth of light.